Hey Baker Art friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. I wanted to give you just a little introduction this week to the remote lesson that all of you, whether you're remote or hybrid, will be doing at home. This is going to be your last at-home remote lesson because the following week you guys were going to be back at school, and so you are going to be doing all of your art here at school again, which is great. So this book called No Such Things is a really cool story written by an author. His name is Bill Peet, and he was around when I was a kid, and my brothers and I loved his stories because they are super clever and fun. And if you listen to this story, you're going to see how he talks about all these different creatures that don't exist, but they're kind of fun to think about. And your task this week is to design your own kind of interesting, silly creature. On Canvas, I've given you some questions to think about as you brainstorm, because some of you might say, well, I don't know, how do I come up with my own type of creature, right? So we're going to use the book as inspiration. So I'm going to flip the camera around and I'm going to show you guys a couple ways that you can brainstorm in order to give yourself ideas for how you're going to draw your no such thing creature. All right, so all you're going to need is a piece of paper, and I gave you pictures of certain animals in the book, so you don't really need the book. But what I'm going to talk to you guys about is in his book, Bill Peet so this was the first animal, but so here is a glubzunk, right? And the glubzunks, he said, looked like big old sunken logs. So he was using something in nature to inspire the creation of this creature, right? So it's a fish, but the body looks like something in nature. So one of the things you can do is when you're brainstorming, you can think about what are some things in nature that you like that you might want to be a part of a creature idea. It could be things like, so if we just say trees, flowers, grass, I'm trying to think of some other things. Natural things, grass. You could even say pumpkins, things like this, right? Then you might want to think about, okay, what are some animals that I think are really cool, right? So you could say penguins, camels, lions, right? So you guys get the idea. So now you have some things from nature and some animals that you like. So then what happens when you take parts of those things? So like a tree has a trunk. Trees also have leaves, right? Flowers have petals. So what happens when you take some of those things and then combine them with something else? So in this case, he combined the tree trunk with a fish. So that's one idea that you could do. In the next one, he takes things. He takes food. So, and in this particular case, dessert, right? It's a piece of cherry pie. So what are some of your favorite foods, right? Maybe it's pizza, maybe it's spaghetti and meatballs. Maybe it's chicken nuggets. Maybe it's mac and cheese, right? Again, what do those things translate as far as if you married them with an animal? And maybe your list of animals gets bigger. Like maybe you want to think about a horse, or maybe you want to think about fish, right? So there's that tact where he thought of, oh, a piece of pie is reminiscent of the head of a bird. So I'm going to put a piece of pie on the head of this bird and turn this into an interesting, fun, silly creature, right? So that's another tact. Then, for example, in this case with the flumpers, they are a snake, right? And snakes can coil up like this. What are other things that coil up? Maybe snails coil up like that, right? And then number 4 is, so what are some man-made objects, right? So there's tires. There's, we could think about a wrench, a hammer. Mrs. Herbay's trying to think of some other things. This was from a wheel. Maybe a balloon. So those are just some brainstorms. You might have some other ideas. And then again, what would happen if I take this man-made thing? What would a hammer look like? The shape of a hammer, how would that translate to a particular type of animal? I don't know. But then again, you can think about how, so it's things going to this, going to this, going to this, all right? Then, in another one, he has, now this is a bird, right? And birds, sometimes like peacocks, they have really tall, cool feathers. So the creature itself is not anything unusual, but what part of the bird did you want to make silly? And in this case, he made the tail feathers look scary. Instead of a peacock, they may look really fancy, have fancy designs. So you again could think of it, what type of animal has something on it that could be changed into something silly. For example, lions have, so there's a lion's mane, right? There was the peacock's feathers. Maybe there could be leopards' spots. Maybe the leopard doesn't have spots. Maybe there's something else silly on the leopard. So that's a whole nother way that you could go with this. And then the last thing that I gave you actually there were 2 more. So these fancy Fandangos, they look like horses or even kind of a little bit like a zebra, but they're not colored in the same way. They don't have the same patterns. They have a fancy pattern. So again, what's an animal that you could take, maybe you want to take a penguin and do something really fancy as part of the design of the penguin. And so it's a completely new, different, silly kind of creature. Last but not least is, I believe, is this guy, the Snoo, all right? And the Snoo has a body kind of a bear, like the legs and the body looks like a bear. But what happens is that Bill Peet puts a fox's head and arms on top of the bear body, but it's facing the opposite way. So he actually combines 2 different animals, and not only does he do that, but he switches the direction of the head and the legs, which is actually kind of cool. So another tact you could take is interchangeability. changing animal body parts, right? What are two of your favorite animals that you want to combine together? What would a camel and, gosh, I'm trying to think of some other type. What would a camel and, Mrs. Herbay stumped. What would a camel and a frog look like if you put them together, right? So think about that. What body parts would you interchange? Would you switch them around? Would you put them in different spots? So that's a whole nother way that you could go with this. So this is kind of how you brainstorm. You kind of think of, or maybe ice cream is your favorite thing, right? So what type of animal could I use an ice cream cone with, or ice cream? So use the book as inspiration. Think about things that you like, and then go ahead and come up with an animal, a silly creature that has a completely new name. So the other thing is not only do I want you to create the creature, so for example, this is a snoof, and it lives in the snowy woods, right? So when you come up with your creature, not only do you want to design the creature, but you want to think about where does the creature live, and the best part of all is what are you going to call this creature. I cannot wait to see what you create, and as always, I will see you soon.